This video covers some information that I have already covered, but debt collectors are such a challenge and some can be so abusive. I just think there's just not enough information. This is kind of a repeat of some of the information I have provided in the other video that I put up on my site. I put the actual Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, which is the actual federal law that governs the debt collectors, and I also put up there portions of the Fair Credit Reporting Act, which touch on some of the topics. But this is a frequently asked question brochure that the Federal Trade Commission puts out about what debt collectors can do to you. So basically, what can debt collectors do to me? And that's a question we all at times have had to ask. This is a serious issue. You know, you're already stressing because for whatever reason you're behind in your debts and maybe you've been laid off or whatever. So it's always a very stressful time. So what I've done is taken the actual brochure and cut and pasted it into this particular video. This is the Debt Collector Frequently Asked Questions little brochure that's on the Federal Trade Commission's website. And I put the URL where you can go and download it from their site if you would like a hard copy of the publication. This is the document that's on the Federal Trade Commission's website, and it covers the frequently asked questions. That's the title. But like I said, this is some repeat of stuff that we have covered on a couple of the other videos. But it's just more information regarding debt collectors. As far as I'm concerned, the better. This is from the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. That act governs the behavior of all debt collectors. I have placed that on my channel in a playlist that I created called Federal Law Protecting Consumers. I put the actual act there. I put all the pages from that particular act on there, and I touched on some of these issues there, but this is like a summary. So the more you read, the more you understand. That's what's so important. Excuse me. The debt collectors, as it says in the first paragraph, cannot use abusive, unfair, or deceptive practices when they try to collect a debt from you. Oh, excuse me. What types of debt are covered? All basic debts are covered except debts regarding businesses. Can a debt collector contact me anytime in any place? No, they cannot. They cannot contact you before 8 in the morning or 9 p.m. at night. And they also cannot contact you at work if they're told you're not allowed to get calls there. How can a debt collector contact me? Any kind of way. Email, letters, text, phone. How can I stop a debt collector from contacting me? Now, we're talking about actual debts that you owe. Let me just stop right here. These practices and things that govern debt collectors will not stop you from having to pay a just debt. The law governs their behavior, but if they violate the law, as it will say later on in this document, it still does not stop you from having to pay the debt. So you want to keep that in mind on the onset. This is not a way to get rid of negative things on your credit report. You have to still deal with them and this debt collector. I'm going to repeat that again. If a debt collector contacts you, you have to follow the rules according to the law to protect yourself. Okay, now back to the question. How can I stop a debt collector from contacting me? You have to send a letter by mail. Keep yourself a copy. Send it with a return receipt with a signature, because you're going to need that. And once the collector gets your letter, it can only contact you to confirm it will stop contacting you or to tell you a specific action, like they're filing a lawsuit or whatever they're getting ready to do in regards to this debt. Now, if you're represented by an attorney and then you have to inform the collector. The collector must communicate with your attorney and not you, unless the attorney fails to respond within a reasonable period of time to a communication from a debt collector. You might want to talk to the collector at least once, even if you don't think you owe the debt or can't repay it immediately. That way you can confirm whether it's really your debt. I want to repeat that again. If they call you the first time or you get a letter from them, follow up. Make sure the debt is yours. That's where your debt validation process comes in. If it is your debt, you can find out from the collector more information about it. And taking what a debt collector in talking with the debt collector, be careful about sharing your personal or financial information, especially if you're not already familiar with the collector. So basically, do not give out any information. All you want is information about the debt, the person who submitted the debt against you. All you want is information. That's all you want. All you want to do is validate the debt. Can a debt collector contact anyone else about my debt? A debt collector generally can't discuss your debt with anyone but you or your spouse. If an attorney is representing you, the debt collector has to contact the attorney. A collector can contact other people to find out your address, your home phone number, and where you work, but usually can't contact them more than once. So if you have a friend or family or somebody that's being hounded by some debt collector claiming that they can't find you or they want information or they're harassing this person, that is illegal. So you can file a complaint or have the person file a complaint with the Federal Trade Commission, and I would strongly recommend the person that's being harassed send them a letter certified. Spend the money to get a return seat, a delivery confirmation, a signature confirmation, because it is very important if you have to go to court. What does a debt collector have to tell me about the debt? A collector has to send you a written validation notice. That's what I was discussing a moment ago. Within 5 days of first contacting you. I'm going to say that again. He has to contact you after he's made the initial contact. He has to send you a written validation notice. And within the 5 days, he can't just keep calling, demanding you pay. He cannot do that. That is illegal. You must get an official validation notice from the debt collector, and it must contain the following: how much money you owe, the name of the creditor you owe it to, what to do if you don't think it is your debt. What if I don't think I owe the debt? You can send a debt collector a letter saying you don't owe any or all of the money, or asking for verification of the debt. If you send the letter within 30 days of getting their validation notice, the collector has to send you written verification of the debt, like a copy of the bill for the amount you owe, before it can start trying to collect the debt again. You also can get a collector to stop contacting you at any time by sending a letter by mail asking for contact to stop. What are debt collectors not allowed to do? They cannot harass you. For example, they can't threaten you with violence or harm, use obscene or profane language, repeatedly use the phone to annoy you. They can't lie. For example, they can't misrepresent the amount you owe. Lie about being an attorney or government representative. False claims, you'll be arrested, or claim legal action will be taken against you if it is not true. I want to repeat that last one again. Falsely claim you will be arrested, or claim legal action will be taken against you if it is not true. So that's why it's so important to follow up with this. This thing is not going to go away. Now, they can't engage in unfair practices. For example, they can't try to collect interest, fees, or other charges on top of the amount you owe unless the original contract or your state law allows it. Deposit a post-dated check early. Threaten to take your property unless it can be done legally. They can't touch the things you owe. They can't do that. They can't come out and say, well, I'm taking this for collateral against your debt. It is so important to follow through with these debt collectors and to clear it up. Can I control which debt my payments apply to? Yes. If a debt collector is trying to collect more than one debt from you, it must apply any payment you make to the debt you choose. Now let me repeat that again. They must apply the payment to the debt you choose. Say if it's a car or some other furniture or whatever the debt is against. If you say, I want to start paying on my car, then they cannot put that money on the other debts you have, like the furniture bill or some other things. They can't spread it out how they want to. You tell them what they are supposed to do. A debt collector may not apply a payment to a debt you say you don't owe. That's why that debt validation letter is so important. You want to make sure you keep good records. You want to follow through. I know it seems like it's something that would be so tiresome. I had went through this in the 90s with a phantom debt collector, so it is a nightmare. What should I do if a debt collector sues me? If a debt collector files a lawsuit against you to collect a debt, respond either personally or through your attorney by the date specified in the court papers. That will preserve your rights. Do not ignore this stuff. I don't care if it's not your debt. You got to fight your way through this to get your name cleared. Can a debt collector take money from my paycheck? Yes, but the collector must first sue you to get a court order called garnishment. That says it can take money from your paycheck to pay your debt. A collector also can seek a court order to take money from your bank account. Don't ignore a lawsuit, or you could lose the opportunity to fight a court order. Can my federal benefits be garnished? In most states, there are laws that state which benefits they will allow to be garnished, but garnishment can be done for delinquent taxes, alimony, child support, or student loans. What if my debt is owed? Debt collectors have a certain number of years they can sue you and when to collect the debt. So there's something called statute of limitation. If the debt is 15 years old and the statute of limitation is 10 years old, then thus you have a time barred debt. So if you're sued, you would go to court and the age of the debt would be your defense. So you would say, sir, the statute of limitation on this debt is 10 years. This is now 15 years after the time that I defaulted on the debt. So thus you have 5 years beyond the statute of limitation. How long the statute of limitation on debts lasts depends on what kind of debt it is. And in some states there have one number, like say it might be 10 years in California for a particular type of debt, but the contract you have, it has a different state specified in the contract. So you got to find out which statute of limitation is the one that governs your situation. Also, under the laws of some states, if you make a payment or provide written acknowledgement of your debt, the clock may start ticking again. So the concept of statute of limitation is something you definitely want to talk to someone in regards to. And the best person to talk to is the Attorney General of your state, your consumer department at the Attorney General's office. Can debt collectors contact me about a time-barred debt? Yes, they can. Even if a debt collector can't successfully sue you over a time-barred debt, you may still owe it. So that's why you definitely want to talk to whomever in your Attorney General's office for your state and to find out what your rights are before you even discuss this issue with your debt collector. What if I'm not sure whether my debt is time barred? Ask the collector when its records show you made your last payment. You also can send the collector a letter within 30 days of receiving a written notice of debt. Explain why you're disputing the debt and that you want to verify it. A collector must stop trying to collect until it gives you verification. This is what saved me in the 90s, was debt validation with a phantom debt collector, because all they had was some crazy printout and they didn't have nothing with my name on it, contracts or anything. and I didn't even live in that city. So the concept of debt validation and the Fair Credit Act is what saved me. Does a time-barred debt stay on my credit report? Maybe. The statute of limitation for a debt is usually different from the reporting period for a debt on your credit report. In general, negative information stays on your credit report for 7 years. Do I have to pay a debt that's considered time-barred? It's up to you. Consider talking to an attorney before you decide. You can pay nothing. The collector can't sue you but can continue to contact you unless you send a letter by mail asking for contact to stop. Make a partial payment in some states. If you pay any amount on a time-barred debt or even promise to pay, the debt is revived. I'm going to read that again. Or if you make a partial payment in some states, if you pay any amount on a time-barred debt or even promise to pay, the debt is revived and the statute of limitation resets. The collector might be able to sue you to collect the full amount of the debt, which may include extra interest and fees. Pay off the debt. Some collectors will accept less than what you owe to settle a debt, but before you make any payment to settle a debt, get a signed form or letter from the collector that says the amount you're paying settles the entire debt and releases you from any further obligation. Also, keep a record of payments you make to pay off the debt. I actually experienced that when I was laid off for one period in my life. I had a debt, and I contacted them when I started to work and made arrangements to pay the debt. They had added a lot of interest charges and stuff. I put together a letter, sent it to them requesting a agreement that I would pay a fixed amount to pay. Well, basically I paid everything but the new interest fees, and I paid the debt with the contingency that they would remove the debt from my credit report. So you have to write the letter to your best, but you don't pay a dime until you get a confirmation letter accepting the terms of new agreement from the creditor. What should I do if I'm sued for a time-barred debt? You still need to respond. Consider talking to an attorney. If you ignore the lawsuit, the collector could get a court judgment and garnishment against you. Tell the judge the debt is time-barred and show a copy of the verification notice from the collector. I'm going to read that again. You must get the verification notice from the collector or any information that shows the date of your last payment. So that validation of the debt is the first thing you want to do. Where do I report a debt collector for an alleged violation? This is the most important part in this whole presentation. Report any problems you have with a debt collector to your state attorney general's office, the Federal Trade Commission, the Consumer Federal Protection Bureau. Many states have their own debt collection laws that are different from the Federal Fair Debt Collection Practice Act. Your attorney general's office can help you determine your rights under your state law. It is a wonderful thing to have these people assisting us so that you are not in the dark, but the key is to follow through. What else can I do if I think a debt collector has broken the law? You can sue a collection in a state or federal court within 1 year of the date the law was violated. So when that person, a collector person, contacted you and did all these unscrupulous things that the law says he's not supposed to do, don't wait 2-3 years later to come back and sue him. Don't do that. You want to do it right away. You can sue for damages like lost wages, medical bills. If you can't prove damages, you can still be awarded up to $1,000 plus reimbursement for attorney's fees and court costs. A group of people suing as part of a class action lawsuit can recover money for damages up to $500,000 or 1% of the collector's net worth, whichever amount is lower. Even if the court finds a debt collector violated the FDCPA in trying to collect a debt, you still owe the debt. So because he breaks the law does not excuse you from, how can I say this, paying a debt. This law is here to protect us who unfortunately find ourselves maybe out of work and we need some assistance, or we need time to get our debts paid. You have to remember, if the debt is legitimate and it hasn't reached the time barred state, the law requires you still to pay that debt, even though the collector used crooked methods to try to get the money. This is the information for this publication. You see the URL here at the bottom. It is on the Federal Trade Commission's website. So you can get this little pamphlet, but you can actually order it or download it. This is the same question we started with. What can debt collectors do to me? And the answer is they can cause great harm if you don't respond. Please do not take one of these crazy debt collectors and not respond to them. Even if the debt is not yours, you have to respond, because they can garnish you your wages, they can cause all kind of havoc, send you to court, get judgments against you, and there's literally nothing you could do once the court has ruled, because you have violated a court order. You got a notice to go to court and you didn't show. So you have to respond to this thing. I know it can be so frustrating, especially if the debt is not yours. And it can even be more frustrating if you're out of work and you can't pay and you're feeling up against the gun and all of this crazy stuff going on in your life. But you can compound that thing and make it worse by not responding to the debt collector, because then you can find yourself being responsible for a debt that's not yours. So yes, the debt collector can cause you great harm, but the law is here to protect you. You have to follow through according to what the Fair Credit Act requires. So debt collectors do have power. They can be prosecuted for being unscrupulous, but there is a law behind them that allows them to collect a just debt from you. So you want to do all your part to protect yourself from an unscrupulous debt collector, but that will not efface the debt you owe. Thank you so much for visiting my channel, and I'm putting all this debt collector stuff up there because I just think it's just so important, because I had such a terrible experience with a phantom debt collector.